Okay, internet, what you doing? How you feeling? You ready to dance? Are you ready? YouTube is getting quick here. It looks like YouTube is waking up. Rockfin, where are you? Rockfin's still up. There's Rock. Ooh, it's neck and neck today. It was neck. I guess Rockfin's been hearing. Rockfin's been hearing. Ooh, YouTube's kicking in a little quicker over on that Get Your News On with Ronville. We got to step it up. Twitter, of course, is always first. What's up, everybody? Good afternoon to all my East Coasters. Good morning to all my fellow West Coasters. And good evening to everyone in the evening time zone. To everyone in the in-between time zones, how's lunch? You having it now? And to everyone in the future, Australia, New Zealand. Solve climate change for the rest of us. We're counting on you. Do it. You're in the future. Extra day of science. Shout out to everyone who makes this show possible. Our friends over at Indie Left. Indie Left is the only place to find all the content creators and streamers you know and love. And what they do is they curate a list for you. So whatever you're looking for, they got a nice list. They work on it. They work it out twice a day. They update it. So you can just get everything right there. Boom. One-stop shop. Find out everything they got going on and to join their Discord community. They're dancing over at the Discord. Check them out at independentleft.media. That's independentleft.media. All right. My guest today is he's been on this show quite a few times. Sometimes, in your life, you might have a pot guy who hooks you up with your pot. You might have a car guy where if you want to buy a car, this is the guy that you like to talk to. Well, because I'm a dude who knows how to party, I have an MMT guy. And whenever I want to talk MMT or an issue related to MMT, this is my guy. This is my MMT guide. He's been my MMT guy for a long time. You can check out his website over at ActivistMMT.org. Please welcome back to the show, Mr. Jeff Epstein. Not the bad one, different one. What's up, Jeff?
Ron, you're tearing me up, comparing me to drug dealers. I love it's tearing me up here. Thank you.
You're welcome.
What's up? How you doing? Good to see you again.
Buddy. Good to see you, man. It's very, very good to see you. The last time we saw each other in person was when the world was still a thing and live performance was still something we all could enjoy.
Man,
and we're slowly.
Do you remember what month that was? That seemed pretty soon before this all started. Now that I think about it.
Well, it wasn't that soon. I mean, it was 2019. So
okay, so like September or something like that. But
it was summer. It was. I want to say it was June because that was part of our East Coast run, and we hit. That was like one of my favorite runs that we've ever done so far. My Grandma Wood and myself and all of our touring together. Because
you saw Jill Stein, I believe, right after us.
Jill Stein showed up in Boston, and the Boston, New York, Philly shows were just so freaking fun. I can't wait to get back out to the East Coast. But yeah, so that would have been, I think, June of 2019 is when that was.
Okay.
So it was kind of
weird that coronavirus was all between the last time I saw you. It's so long ago.
It's crazy, man. It really is. But one of the things you've done, we'll go here first because you mentioned this off air. One of the things you've done is you took up some guitar and you said you had a guitar question for me. I don't know if I'll be able to answer it, but I'll try.
No, you honestly were part of my inspiration for picking up the guitar. I mean, coronavirus did two things for me. Number one, I make popcorn on the stove regularly now, and my 11-year-old calls it Daddy's amazing popcorn. Thank you very much. And the other thing was I picked up a guitar in January. Actually, it was inspired by him because he saved up for a long time. We bought him a real but a little bit smaller guitar, and I fell in love with it. And so like a month later, I'm like, I have to get one. And now I'm practicing like crazy. And you partly inspired that. And I choose what I choose to do is really difficult finger picking songs, like 50% speed. That's like my goal. And I have a good amount of it now. But like what you do, like with Mary Jane, we sang Mary Jane.
Yeah, and we did.
Your style is much more strumming.
Sure.
And you make strumming feel like music to me. And when I strum, it does not feel music to me, which is why I choose finger picking. And so I kind of wanted to ask you that. Like when I do strumming, I can't make it feel musical. It just feels like blah, blah, blah. And I'm just kind of curious of like, how does it become music for you by just hitting those chords? Like, I don't know, like what you think of between the chords, how I'm just curious just take that as you will. I'm curious your thoughts on that.
I mean, that's That's a really good question, and it's one that I don't feel like I don't feel like I'm really qualified to answer because I just kind of do what I know and then leave it there. I guess the best advice I could give is kind of study some people that have really nailed what it means to be a great strumming guitarist. And I am not one of those people. I am a hobbyist who rewrites old protest songs and updates them and makes them funny.
Mm,
And those are songs that are meant to be played in a pub with people singing along. So 3 chords and the truth is all you need.
mhm.
So I can pull that off. I'm not playing Hendrix, you know what I mean?
Sure.
But listen to people if you're not already familiar with him, listen to people like David Rovix.
Okay.
Yeah, you've probably seen I mean that he's been on my show quite a few times. Listen to the way like he will strum his songs, the way he'll kind of just use the chords to make their own melody.
Okay.
Another guy who really nailed that is a guy named Ed Hamill. He goes by the moniker Hamill on Trial. He does a
Okay.
lot of lead stuff too because he's an incredible player overall. So is David. But
Mhm.
um, but the way in which they strum and the way in which they play with their chords is very, very, um, fun to watch. And you kind of see how they're able to just fill the sound with one guy and a guitar. Billy Bragg, also great at that.
Oh,
So I would say listen to some of those guys because I mean, for me personally, I don't know if I do that or not. Maybe I do to an extent. I mean, I'm not as good of a player as any of the people I mentioned, but if I do it at all, it's because, I listen to that type of stuff. And so that's just kind of what I know,
that makes
where
sense.
it's like,
I think it's kind of shows that you know how to relax and improv while you're playing, and I'm not comfortable with that. I'm comfortable with
mm,
being given very rigid instructions, finger picking and so on. And I think that kind of something has something to do with it as well.
yeah, probably, man. Because yeah, I am like what you described. I am the opposite of that. Like, I need to be told what to finger pick. What I would probably fail at that. If someone's like, do this lead, I'm like, well, what if I want to do something else? But if you
Mhm,
just give me a guitar and you're like, just come up with something that's gonna, pass like that, I
mhm.
can do. Kind of like in Philly. We can give people a brief summary of what happened in Philly. We were playing this little upstairs room, super cool space. I really liked it there.
Pole, pole, the pole.
Oh yeah, there was a pole in the middle of it. That's right. I
Mhm.
forgot about that. Yeah, there was like a pole in the middle of it, and there was like bench style seating. But it was this really neat little like black box style space. It's still there. It's called the Raven Lounge, and maybe we'll even go back there for 2 nights. We'll see what happens schedule wise, but um, they couldn't pipe sound into the upstairs from the downstairs for some reason.
Mhm.
Um, so eventually I kind of was realizing that it was just awkward because people were just going into a room with awkward silence and they were just standing there. So I was like, well, you had a guitar because you wanted to do my theme song. Because for anyone not in the know,
Mhm.
the Get Your News On with Ron theme song, that beautiful high harmony you hear, that is Jeff's voice.
It is
Uh,
so amazing to be pretty much on every one of your videos. That is just such an amazing thing to me.
Well, thank you. Well, I appreciate you doing it, man. Your harmony, it makes the theme. But yeah. So Jeff was like, "Can we do the theme song live?" Since I sing it on the podcast, and I'm like, "Totally, man. That sounds like a blast." So you brought a guitar. So a guitar was just chilling there. So I was like, you know what? I feel like I have to do something. So I just jumped on stage and started being the filler music for the night. I was like, I'm just gonna play songs to be filler music, and I had a blast. It was so much fun.
You played quite a
So
few.
so then I played like 5. I don't know. It was just riffing, having a good time. So the next night you were like, dude, can we play a couple songs together? And I'm like, well, I'm assuming they're probably not going to be able to pipe music in the next night. So sure. So you and I did Last Dance with Mary Jane. And
Yeah, it
then
was
did we
great.
do another one too? Did we do
No, no, we
Okay.
didn't.
We
Yeah,
did
we
that
didn't.
one. That was so much fun. God,
That was great. And I for the first time I did percussion on one of just a big box,
you did.
and it was kind of cool. I mean, it wasn't amazing, but that was like it was really cool. It was a great experience.
Well, you can like actually sing. Like you're a trained good singer. I'm sort of just I have fun, you know. So it was cool like harmonizing with a real singer like you. You know what I mean? Like
Well,
I
it
don't get
was
to I have a lot of
you
I have a
can't
lot of
harmonize unless
friends.
there's something that's harmonizable. So
Thanks. I'm glad I gave you some kind of source material, but it's like, but yeah, I mean, you got the pipes, my friend. You got the pipes, my friend.
Thank you, thank you,
But
thank you.
yeah, it was a good time. So let's get into MMT, which is the main thesis of what we're going to be talking about today and how it relates to some of the stuff going on in the world. And
Hey, Ron.
Oh, is that yours? Is that your thing?
Deficit Owls,
Okay.
Owls on Twitter. They sell this.
Oh,
I love it. I love it.
okay. That's a cool shirt, man. So I am reading Stephanie Kelton's book right now, The Deficit Myth. I've been
That's
wanting to read
great.
it for a while. I
That's
had to
great.
wait. I had to wait at the library for a hot minute
Mm.
for a digital copy, no less, on the Libby app. But anyway, you sent me this video, and I've heard a bunch of other people talk about this video too. I've not watched it yet, so let's just kind of watch it together.
Great.
But everyone's talking about this. Everyone's talking about this video where I guess, is this the person who said it, Representative Kevin Hearn? Or
no, he's
okay.
a Republican. He's the guy that the guy's going to respond to, and actually his name skips my mind right now. But the guy coming on right after this is the House Budget Committee chair,
right,
of the House, obviously, and he responds to this in a way that I would respond to it, but actually much more elegant. I can only imagine he's talking with Stephanie Kelton behind the scenes, because the way that he responds to this, he's absolutely brazen MMT for like 6 minutes long. We're obviously not going to watch all 6 minutes, but he and actually later on, after we're probably going to stop, he plugs Stephanie Kelton and tells people to buy her book, The Deficit Myth. It's like really amazing. So what we're going to hear from Kevin Hearn is basically, I don't know, 20, 30 seconds of the setup that forgive me, I forget his name, is going to respond to.
All right. Well, so let's dive right into it.
Has pushed in the American Family Plan, as you just referenced. American Family Plan is over $4 trillion of spending. The American Jobs Plan that was just pushed forward is over $1.5 trillion. And so when you look at these two programs together, along with some other things.
So this is more of the, we can't afford anything. That's what this guy's getting at.
Money.
We can't afford anything except for bombs. We always have money for that, but everything else can't afford it.
Right.
All right. So let's continue listening to this guy's bullshit.
What's going on? We're talking about a $6 trillion budget, and the American taxpayer has just said enough is enough. Even Democrats now are sending letters to the leaders of both the House and the Senate saying we have got to get our fiscal house in order.
So, Chair Yarmouth, I mean, how can we spend
John Yarmouth
$1 trillion and all the other money that President Biden wants to spend? How can we afford it?
We can't afford it because we determine how much money's in the system and at the federal level. The federal government is.
Whoa.
That is a more elegant way I have ever heard any MMTer say it. We decide the amount of money that's in the system.
That's something they don't like saying for many reasons. As
you have no idea. This is the tip of the iceberg of this. All
right. So let's keep watching. I want to interrupt anymore. Let's keep watching.
But that particular statement is just like the best, most elegant way of saying it that I had.
Well, I just see why everybody's been sharing this and why everyone's been like, whoa. I mean, I get it. Like, he just straight up said it within the first 5 seconds. Like, well, we determine how much money's around.
Yeah.
You know that, right? We're not allowed to talk about that, but that's how it goes. Sorry. All right, let's keep watching this.
Any other user of currency, not like any household, any business, any state or local government. We issue our own currency, and we can spend enough to meet the needs of the American people. The only constraint being that we do have to worry about inflation from that spending. Now, what so many people say, well, we've got so much debt and our grandchildren are going to it's going to be on their backs and so forth. That's not the way it works. And I think the American people need an education about how the monetary system does work. I remember going back, Greta, to when Paul.
Wow.
There's way more. And later on, which I'm pretty sure is far beyond, we're not going to watch all 6 minutes. He says, so this lady says, but does that mean that we can just spend and just accumulate debt? And he gives an amazing example, just amazing. He says, well, we could give every American family $200,000 so they can buy a house. We could do that. We have the power to do that. We have the power of the purse to do that. But we don't have the homes. We don't have the builders. We don't have the land. And it would cause home prices to go through the roof. It would cause a crisis. So that is our limitation. It's just extraordinary what this guy keeps going on about. And not just what he's saying, but who is saying it. The House Budget Committee chair.
Right. I mean, that is, encouraging. I mean, obviously actions speak louder than words, but that is very, very encouraging to hear someone in that position say those kind of things. And well, let's stay on inflation for a second, because I actually thought that Stephanie Kelton's book, that when she addresses inflation, she kind of puts that whole topic to bed completely and brings it back to MMT. And of course, I'm going to paraphrase this, and I'm not going to put it near as eloquently as it is in her book. But the gist of this, and feel free to jump in and fill in any blanks that I don't hit here. Mm-hmm. One of the arguments people will throw at MMT is they're like, well, what are you guys? You guys are just saying just create currency all willy-nilly and then inflation. And it's like, no, that's not what MMT is. Actually, what MMT is we create our currency, so we have the choice to utilize that in a much more constructive way. MMT is not saying inflation isn't an issue. And this is kind of the way she puts it in the book. She's saying that the way that we manage inflation is a choice. And the choice that our society has made to manage inflation is, well, some people just have to suffer and be poor. Tough. That's the choice they made. It doesn't have to be that way. Another way to manage inflation that she points out in the book, and this is just one of many topics she brings up, but I felt like it was a very poignant one, is she says, by not having as productive of an economy as we could have, we're not, like, that's another way we could manage inflation. So something like a federal jobs guarantee, something like actually spreading out the resources we do have, that's another way to manage inflation. And the difference there is that people are way better off and their lives are way freaking better. So why wouldn't we do that? Well, you and I know why, Jeff, but that's what she poses in the book. And that puts to bed the whole, well, inflation will just go through the roof if MMT. No, it freaking won't. And she, in a paragraph, she just nails that in the book.
I would phrase it this way. Well, first, as far as I understand, I still have, a lot more to learn, but as far as I understand, there's only two things that can cause inflation pretty much. One is bad politics, and two is catastrophe. Otherwise, it's just choice. Inflation is pretty much just choice. I mean, there is catastrophe that can cause inflation. OPEC can cause inflation. Hyperinflation with losing a war can cause inflation. Catastrophe can cause inflation. Otherwise, just pretty much bad politics can cause inflation. Bad human decisions can cause inflation. We do not have to have inflation outside of those two things, and we just don't have to. What MMT says what MMT says is, I would phrase it in two ways. Number one, I would phrase it as, if we need to do something and we have the things with which to do them, they're available. If we need to make a pie and we have the ingredients and a cook and the equipment and a plug for the stove to cook it in, we can make a pie. It has nothing to do with money. If we have bread and ham in a refrigerator, we can afford to make a sandwich. It has nothing to do with money. And so if something needs to be done and we have the things to do it with available, we can do it. Money has nothing to do with it. We can create the money to do it because those things are available. So there's no issue of inflation if we have the things sitting around. I would also say this way, that MMT says we can issue the currency and therefore we don't have to withhold. Basically, the government is pretending they're like a tricycle, when in reality they're a supercar. And so when you throttle yourself below your capacity and people are desperate for what only you can give, then you are deliberately withholding. And MMT says driving too slow is unsafe. Driving too fast is unsafe. We are driving too slow. Just drive the legal limit. Do not exceed your capacities, and do not exceed your limitations, and do not throttle your capacities. So MMT says just just do what you're capable of doing, because only the federal government is capable of doing certain things.
And going back to your pie example or sandwich, whatever you want to call it, or whatever food item you want to use, I think that's really good because, okay, so we have the ingredients to make this pie and we want this pie to be made, but there's nobody to pay to make the pie. Well, here's the other side of that too. Here's the other piece of all this, no pun intended. Somebody else wants to buy that frickin' pie. Someone else is waiting to buy this pie. Someone else wants to, this pie has economic value if it's made. If it's not made, well, then the ingredients just go bad eventually, and then we're just sitting there with nothing to eat.
I want a pie.
I want a pie. And MMT saying like, yeah, we have the current, we can create the currency to pay someone to make that pie that also brings about value. So an underutilized economy, that's what when you say inflation is caused by bad politics, that's some of the bad politics you're referring to. A federal jobs guarantee is good politics.
Absolutely. It is about not withholding what's desperately needed. That's what I see MMT is about. Stop withholding what is desperately needed and obviously doable. And so people fear that, well, we're already at our limitation. So anything you want to do is already beyond that limitation, that false limitation. So why don't we just give everybody $2 million? Don't stop at 2,000 a month. Let's give everybody 2 million a month. Come on. So it's like, wait a minute, the car can go faster. Well, then let's disable the brakes and floor it. What? You know?
Right. Yeah. So should we watch more of the video? Is there more that?
Sure. We can, why don't we kind of frame this whole thing around gradually watching the whole thing, whatever.
All right. Because like he talks inflation and we just addressed that from the lens of Stephanie Kelton's book, which by the way, quick disclaimer here. I recommend people read that book and don't just take my, like kind of interpretations or reiterations.
Your commission is very small, I understand.
Huh?
Your commission is very small, I understand.
That's right. I only but have you ever met her? Have you ever met Stephanie Kelton in your MMT activism days?
I've seen her in rooms in the conferences and,
right.
asked a question that on a panel where she was on where she happened to answer part of it, but not really beyond that.
She's very, I mean, I've only kind of like met her. Like I've never met her in person, but she's so kind of laid back and just really like she can explain things in such a basic way where you're like, oh yeah, that's awesome.
That's what I find amazing about this book is I read this book about 1.5 years, maybe 2 years after I started like really aggressively learning MMT. And I got a lot out of it. So, it's just like, it shows that she can speak to people with zero experience. And she can also speak to people with a decent amount of experience at the same time. So that's an impressive thing to do.
Well, and it's a very important thing to do. I mean, another book that you and I have talked about on air, off air, and just in our lives is Debt by, David Graeber, who, rest in power. It's very sad he's no longer with us. But that book is what, like 800 pages? Like how long is that book? Like that's like,
yeah, it's heavy duty.
And it is heavy reading and that's okay. Like there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, I mean, that book was a freaking project to get through.
I don't think it was too difficult to read. It was just such an amazing amount of quantity.
It was just very extensive. And for someone who doesn't have, I think to really attack that book, you have to have, in my opinion, a little bit of a background about what it really means to have money. And I would say like just a little bit of an understanding of what something like MMT is to tackle a book like that. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying, when someone like a Stephanie Kelton can come along and really just explain it in such a basic manner for someone who has never heard of any of these concepts before, that's very valuable. And that's something that's not easy to do.
Yeah, no, I agree. She's definitely got a gift for that.
So let's watch a little more of this.
Orion was chair of the budget committee, and even before that, and all of these forecasts of gloom and doom about, we're going to accumulate so much debt and interest rates are going to crowd out all other spending. Well, we basically doubled the national debt from the recession in 2009 until last year before the pandemic. And none of the things that people warned would happen happened. We didn't have inflation. We had record low interest rates rather than higher interest rates. And the dollar was trading within normal levels vis-a-vis other currencies. So I think a lot of economists now have begun to say, wait a minute, maybe we've been thinking about debt in entirely the wrong way. And even Fed Chair Jay Powell has basically said, we have the fiscal space to do what we need to do right now, to make the investments we need to make to build the kind of economy for the future that we all hope we'll have.
Pretty amazing.
Maybe we've been thinking about debt the wrong way.
Oh man, can I have two thoughts about this?
A dude in
when you're
his
done.
position just said that.
Oh man, it's incredible. This is one of the bigger milestones, I think, in my experience with MMT. This is one of the biggest milestones. I would say AOC is the biggest one, the first big one.
How long until they fire this guy?
Oh yeah, no, or he's dead, or he's gonna die of something in a banana peel or something. Yeah.
Oh boy. So anyway, yeah. Let's your thoughts, please.
Two things. Number one, he said record low interest rates. Interest rates are decided on by a vote of the FOMC board members at the Federal Reserve. They decide what the interest rate is. The interest rate is decided on by human beings at the Federal Reserve. So the fact that we have record low interest rates is because they voted to have record low interest rates. It's not something that's influenced by the market. They choose what the interest rates are. So every time you hear somebody say, oh, the interest rates might go up, or the interest rates are record low, or we can borrow because there's low interest rates, we can borrow. There's low interest rates because the Fed chooses it to have low interest rates. That's it. So that's number one. And number two is I just learned something amazing. And it's kind of obvious if you think about it. Like people will say, oh, the dollar's going to crash. MMT is going to cause the dollar to crash. The dollar's going to plummet and all this stuff. There's the other side of the equation that people aren't talking about. If the dollar plummets, obviously you can only say that in relation to other currencies. In the United States in isolation, it makes no sense to say the dollar plummets. Plummets against what? Right? So the dollar plummets against other currencies.
Right.
If the dollar plummets, that means relatively speaking, the other currencies have gone up. And when their currencies go up, their stuff, real goods, is more expensive to Americans and dollar holders. That's bad for them. China doesn't want their stuff to become more expensive to us. So when the dollar plummets, hypothetically speaking, if the dollar plummets, the Chinese yuan goes way up. It has to, because we're talking about two currencies, two sides of the transaction here. So when the dollar plummets, other currencies go up. When other currencies go up, their goods, their real goods, go up in price for dollar owners, for Americans. China doesn't want that. They want their stuff to go into our dollar stores. So what do? They buy dollars. They exchange their yuan for tons and tons of dollars because they've plummeted and now they're cheap. So the dollar is now plummeted. China can afford to buy tons of them. And then by them buying tons of them and other countries buying tons of them makes the price go up, which causes the crisis to not be there anymore. So when people talk about a plummeting dollar or, the dollar is going to crash, they're not considering the other side of the equation because the rest of the world isn't going to let that happen. And when the dollar plummets, that means it's a lot cheaper and other countries can simply buy bonds and it's incredibly cheap, which makes the price go up. So it's just an amazing, it's so obvious. So when people scaremonger about that.
Well, here's what's interesting. They not only scaremonger about that, Jeff, they also scaremonger about everything you just described.
Everything.
They make it out like that's some scary thing because, China is buying dollars. No. And they don't look at it from the perspective of, this is basically causing the stability of world currencies because they don't want, all their stuff to be expensive to us.
Imagine I'm a father. I give allowance to my kids, and I actually do this. I actually have a Google Doc where I say, the kid how much he has, and I'll call them daddy bucks. It's just a number in a text document. And so he has 85 daddy bucks, and he can exchange. I want to go to the movies this week. I want to exchange 25 daddy bucks for real money, and I'll give him money from my pocket. I make those points go down. So that's his allowance. That I'm the government, he's the people. The money is daddy bucks. Only I can create it. So when China buys my money, it's like my next door neighbor buys daddy bucks. Does that make sense? And so the neighbor down the street says, "Oh, I ran out of daddy bucks. Can I please borrow some of your allowance for your own kid so I can give my kid allowance?" It's just unbelievably nonsensical to say that the Chinese need our money in this, like they can hold sway over us. It's like the neighbor down the street is going to say, "I have daddy bucks. I'll crush you. I'll crush your family with your allowance." That wasn't quite as solid as I was hoping it would be, but hopefully there was a little taste of that my issuing allowance to my kid is no different than the government issuing allowance to the people. And therefore, and then another country coming in and using that money doesn't give them power over that government, because that government is the only one that has the power of creating and deleting that money. The China can't create and delete our money, so they can't hold any sway over us. That was kind of all over the place. Maybe skip over it, but maybe there's hopefully a little taste of something interesting in there.
No. I get what you were saying, and yeah, like I get where you were going with that example. Now, how many daddy bucks does it cost to go to the movie?
No, that's
like
that's dollars for him.
It's actual
he exchanged
dollars.
It's essentially, to him, it's dollars.
So one daddy buck is $1.
Yeah, exactly. He just exchanges that, but we just keep. That's just my way of keeping track of it. Oh, okay. Which is no different than how the central bank and the treasury keep track of how much money any entity in the economy has.
See, I thought maybe it's no different. You really use this as a way to not only teach your kid about economic theories, but also to assure good behavior from your kid. Like, hey, just so you know, when you're an asshole, the value of daddy bucks goes down.
That's actually quite close.
If you misbehave, 10 daddy bucks it costs 20 daddy bucks now. It used to be 10 daddy bucks to go to the movie. It's 20 now. And if you stop being an asshole, it'll only be 10 again.
That's actually
yours.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's actually, I wouldn't say that the value of I wouldn't charge.
Go ahead and implement that, and your kid will hate me forever.
Yeah. I would stop giving him. I would stop giving it to him because there is a condition of good behavior and good grades and whatever. Or I would tax him, or I would penalize him. Oh, your allowance is now negative 1,000. Suck it up, kid. What's stopping me from
daddy bucks?
What's stopping me from making a negative 100? What, negative 1,000 or whatever it is? What's stopping me? Nothing. There's nothing stopping me. And I can cancel his debt just by making that a zero, just like canceling student debt, canceling medical debt. They have negative 1,000 in their computers, and all they have to do is change it to a zero, and it's all done. That's all they have to do.
Why isn't Joe Biden canceling student loan debt, Jeff?
You're making my skin crawl. Something you just said make my skin crawl. What was that?
Yeah,
no, there it goes again. No, he's a joke.
Of course,
the only positive thing about him is that he doesn't have Dorito-colored hair and he doesn't tweet at 3 a.m. Otherwise, he's Trump. And the racism. No, he doesn't have the racism. He doesn't hate gay, black, and brown people. But otherwise,
well, his policies do. I mean,
yes, that's true.
The crime bill. I mean, he wrote the crime bill, and he was doing that anti-LGBTQ legislation recently, and he wasn't for gay marriage until he had to be.
And he just made Juneteenth a federal holiday, right?
He did do that. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. But what is he not doing? That's basically,
where do you want to start that list? What is he not doing?
Right. So what is he?
That list.
Right. So is he using that as basically a distraction
to distract the fact that he's giving the Pentagon and the police more money? Probably.
And disabling unions and
disabling unions even more so than they've already been defanged over the course of 50 years.
Yeah, he really disgusts me. He really, really disgusts me.
That's being diplomatic about it.
Yeah.
Is your kid playing a computer game or something?
No, I'm sorry. Our phone has a ridiculous ringer.
That's your phone? Is that your landline?
It's our landline. It's FiOS, but it is a landline.
So not only do you have a landline, but it sounds like a spaceship from the 80s.
Yeah, pretty much.
I love it.
Or my kids play with the phone and choose the most ridiculous, ringer that we could possibly have.
I haven't had a landline in like 15 years. I'm pretty sure.
Actually, as I mentioned, we're we're moving to our home, or our first home, hopefully, if all things work out, but it seems likely. And we were thinking maybe not getting a landline, but I don't know how our kids would talk with their friends, and that's like really important. So I'm not
Really?
sure.
So,
Yeah,
like,
how
kids wait, I thought
my
every
my
kid
11-year-old well, we're not getting them cell phones. Yeah, no,
Really? You don't have
no.
cell phones for
When
your
they're 18, they
okay.
can have a cell phone. No,
No
no way.
shit.
No way. When they're 18, if they want to buy,
18?
they can get a job and they can earn money and they can buy themselves a cell phone if that's what they want. I ain't buying them a cell phone. That's
All
for
right,
sure.
man. I mean, that's all right. I
No, I'm
what if they
high.
accumulate enough daddy bucks for a cell phone? What are you gonna do?
Go for it, but not until 18 years old. That's for sure.
18?
Oh yeah, no, I am totally. We are so anti-technology. It's ridiculous. I mean, they have time on their iPad but we are really, really strict. Oh yeah. So given that,
Right. I mean, hey man, I'm not a parent, so I don't, I can't really.
well, I mean,
Right.
basically, television and technology is the drug that you give to your kids so you can get a fix. That's how I see it. You want to really get into it.
Well, I mean, I really don't. I mean, again, I'm not a parent, so I have no clue or business weighing in on anything parent related. But I guess from like just a thematic standpoint, like I think that technology isn't going anywhere. So I would want them like I feel like it's like something like a cell phone is just so common and just such a common tool for society that I mean I wouldn't give one to like a 3-year-old, but I think I would, I don't know, probably like come middle school or high school, I would probably want them to have one. I mean, that's just me. I'm
I'm alone. My wife and I are completely alone in this, and whatever. That's okay.
fine.
We don't have a TV in
Yeah.
our house. I mean, we watch stuff streaming, Disney Plus, whatever, but we don't have a TV in our house. We have never had no TV in our house. You're never having a phone until you're 18.
Aren't you worried they might not be able to handle it when they get one though because of that?
I have faith in my children.
All right, fair enough.
But honestly, within the next 10, 20 years, who knows what we're going to have or not have.
Who knows what we're going to have? I mean,
Like,
that's
my
fair.
kid wants to do computer programming. I was a computer programmer, and I'm sure he could be amazing at it. I ain't helping him. I'm not stopping him, but I ain't helping him because climate change, I mean, energy and food and water 10, 20 years down the road when they're adults, and luckily we're going to be, approaching, the latter halves of our lives. Who knows what the hell's going to happen? I just read a terrifying article that I don't think necessarily the details are exactly correct. But I think he's in the ballpark, and the next 10 years, we're going to start to see stuff. The next 20 years, holy cow. And the next 30 years, I just don't see my kids having a future. And so it just makes me want to, if we don't change our path, because we're certainly not on the path of changing our path at the moment. I'm sure you would agree with that.
Yeah. Of course.
But I really see, like, basically we have 10, 20 years at the most of what we consider privileged, normal lives left. And then after that, all bets are off. And as far as technology and computers and computer programming, video games and all that stuff, who knows what's going to happen? And I'm not going to help my kid dive into something that, even if it does last, it's certainly not helping the human race. It's going to he'll make a rich guy. I was a computer programmer. I made a rich guy richer. I mean, yes, some people do, of course. But generally speaking, you're going to make money with something that doesn't help people in the way that we need to desperately help people,
as I see it. Yeah, I mean,
I got seriously strong opinions on this one, Ron. This
no,
ain't
that's
MMT,
fine, man. And I'm not trying to argue with you. I'm just
no,
it's just
fine.
an interesting conversation. Like, do you think though, like, staying on climate change, I think that the reality of the situation is that there's going to be a little bit of everything. I hate to use the phrase all of the above, but I do think there's going to be a lot of different things in the solution. We're going to have to, the big pillars being stopping the biggest polluters in the world, which are the corporations and endless war,
70
and
companies,
gas and
70 companies, 100 companies that are doing 70% of all carbon emissions on the entire planet.
Right.
But recycle, individual.
Well, and you should do everything you can as an individual, but you need to recognize, you need to recognize that without true systemic societal change, that it's all for nothing. And yeah,
course.
I mean, I understand that. I mean, I recycle, I compost, I do my absolute best as an
Me too.
individual,
Me
while
too.
still recognizing we need true systemic change, or this is all for nothing.
Sure.
But so it's all that. It's the big polluters. It's what we can do as individuals. It's you know, and obviously that first one is way just more significant than that second one. That's just the reality. But I think that technology, whether we like it or not, I wish this wasn't the case, but in my opinion, technology will have to be part of the answer too.
So
To what
you like, for
extent, I
example, you
don't
mean like,
know.
do you mean like, for example, like sucking carbon out of the air, or reflecting sunlight out or
Well,
whatever, or
I
something
don't
like
know
that?
exactly. I don't know
But
exactly
something to
what
that
and what
effect, that kind
something to
of.
that effect. Yes. I
Okay.
mean, do I think that Bill Gates is going to block out the sun randomly for years? No, I don't think it's going to be like that. But I do think, yeah, you're going to see some technological advancements that are going to help us adapt.
I don't disagree necessarily, but I think there is an enormous danger associated to that.
Oh, of
Number
course there is. But there's also
no,
an
no,
enormous danger to going extinct.
I don't know about that. Yeah, of course. No, but what I was going to say was there's a particular kind of danger associated to hoping that technology is going to save us. Number one is that it
Well,
distracts. Number one is that it distracts us from doing what we really need to do. But number
just
two,
let me interject really quick here, just to clarify. And I know I don't think you were imposing this on me, but just to be clear, I'm not saying technology will save us. I'm saying it's part of it.
agreed. I agree. I agree with
Those
you.
are two very different things, just to be clear to everybody.
I agree with you, and I do think that that's what you said. On the idea that like reflecting sunlight and sucking out carbon and ejecting it into the space or something like that. I mean, those are considerations, and it's like, okay, great. So let's say it works. Let's say it works beautifully, and we can suck out all of the carbon. We can shoot it out into space, and we can lower our carbon, whatever. Number one, does that distract us from? Does that suddenly give us permission? Oh, now we can have Hummer 5s. And also,
Valid.
but even more than that, what if it breaks even temporarily? Boom, all a sudden reversion back to what we were. Not a clean, slow transition, but a sudden, if the technology breaks down or is sabotaged in any way or runs out or whatever it is, a sudden reversion back to what was before that technology was implemented. And
Totally.
I think that's really, really scary prospect.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, again, I'm certainly not advocating for putting all the eggs in the technology basket. Quite totally not that. You know, I'm just saying, I think in reality, there's going to be a technological piece to the puzzle, whether
Sure.
we like it or not.
Yes, I agree.
And I do think that, but what you're saying is totally right on. And you have to, at the end of the day, Jeff, you have to have a little bit of hope in humanity that we won't be that fucking ridiculous. Now, I'm
Well,
not saying we won't be.
no, what
I'm
we
just
won't
saying
be.
we gotta.
We
Oh
won't
yeah,
be.
we'll be dead
But
and gone. But
yeah, no, but actually, I'll add a little terrifying, and then I'll bring it back to MMT, which is what I see is going to happen if we don't change our path. Well, I mean, I think it's inevitable that some cities are going to go under. And even if a city like New York doesn't go under, its tunnels are going to go under. Its underground subway system is going to go under, which means I think part of its airports is going to go under. And how much can New York City function without its subway system? So even if it doesn't directly go under, it's going to be severely disabled. And so some cities are going to have to be abandoned over the next, 50 years, which means where are those people going to go? What are they going to do? What do we do? And that means that now we're talking about people crossing borders. Now we're talking about cities that black and brown people are going to start crossing borders. And now we're getting into immigrants stole my job. That immigrant stole my job, and Trump's wall and all that prejudice. And MMT, if we had a job guarantee, there would be no immigrant stole my job, because there would be a job for everybody.
Totally, as there should be, and we can have that. But one thing I will also, put in here on what you're saying, the one thing we do have in the United States is a ton of frickin' space. We have a lot of space in this country, an awful. I've driven around, man. I
Unowned?
can attest.
Unowned?
Well, no. But
Oh.
as far as like, I do think that within our lifetimes, we will be looking at an unrecognizable country. I do think there's a very good chance before
One
we're
way or
dead,
another.
one
One
way
way
or
or
another,
another.
one way or another.
Yep.
And it may not be worse. It might be better. It may be way worse. I don't know for sure. I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure it's the former, that it's something better. I'm going to try,
Yep.
as an individual, everything I can possibly do, I'll do. That doesn't guarantee anything, but,
No.
but I do think we will be looking at an unrecognizable place
I
within our
agree.
lifetime.
And actually, as I mentioned off the air and a tiny bit on air, our first ever offer and our first ever home was just accepted a week or 2 weeks ago. And if inspection works out this Friday, then we're golden. We're nervous because it was built in 1893, but it seems like it's going to work out. So we just purchased a home. It's bigger than this. It's much bigger than this. It ain't no McMansion by any means, but it's bigger than this. And it has an insane backyard. It's just unreal. We're really, really lucky. We're really privileged. We are privileged to have what we just ended up with, especially in this crazy market, because we got under significantly, not very under asking, which in this market is a miracle. And
what you
so the
do
reason I'm
now
saying
is you fund a garden and you have your kid work in the garden
that's not actually, I was thinking of a tiny garden, but that's actually not a bad
for
idea.
daddy bucks.
Yeah. Oh, whoa. Okay.
And again, well, here, I mean, look at how this goes. I mean, you start your own Epstein household federal jobs guarantee,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm gonna put up for the garden with these created daddy. Well, actually, you're gonna go to the store and buy seeds with real money. I mean, don't go to Home Depot, try to use daddy bucks. I don't think it'll work out for you. But you go and you buy some seeds, and you funded this garden, and then they have an opportunity. They earn daddy bucks, and you see, the value of their labor, which of course is crops that feeds your family.
Of course.
This is MMT.
It's Ron. It's not
on
a bad
very
idea.
micro level.
I wanted to make a point about the house, which was people have homes. They have McMansions. I have friends who have ridiculous homes, like more than we could ever need. And it is American policy. It is American government policy. I did a whole interview with this. It was amazing. It is American government policy from more than 100 years ago to dangle big homes in front of white people's faces. And that is the privilege that they want to hold on to, and keep black people and brown people out of that neighborhood through predatory loans and through just blatant discrimination and what's it called? Like, you can't be too loud, those kinds of laws. I forget what it's called.
Laws?
Not zoning, but basically, if you live in the neighborhood and you're too loud, you can get a citation,
Okay.
which is discriminatory. It's discriminatory. So it's American government policy to give people big homes, white people big homes, to keep people divided up, to prevent like what it started as preventing the Russian Revolution, something like the Russian Revolution. So that's what they did. So I now have a home, which is basically contributing to this whole problem. And the people that have these McMansions are afraid to lose them. And that's why they vote for Joe Biden. And that's why we're not rising up. And that's why we're not demanding what needs to be done to solve this problem. And the McMansions are basically no different than the poorest of the poor people once it really hits the fan.
That's the thing too. There's a lot of people who are tricked into thinking that this status quo is okay because they themselves are very comfortable. But
yeah,
I mean, if we enter into true neo-feudalism, which we're heading that way, and they're planting seeds, no pun intended, based on the conversation we just had, they're planting seeds pushing us in that direction. And it's, Trump did it, Biden's doing it, it doesn't,
I don't even see it as feudalism or neo whatever at all. I see it as utter chaos. That's what it'll going to happen.
That's what it'll become. And in that case, nobody's comfortable.
Right. And not even
people are going to get the status quo that they protected.
Right. And even the McMansions are going to be the bottom rung And when that starts to happen, but people see Trump, they fear Trump, they fear losing their house, they fear gas becoming $3.50 a gallon. And so they use that as an excuse to excuse Biden and to say that Biden is great and Trump is horrible when they're really not that different.
Yeah, they're really not. I mean, it's like you didn't really vote out fascism. You just rearranged the furniture.
Pretty much. I mean, it's too corporate.
It's like
The
yeah,
only-
you voted a fascist administration out, but if you if you replace it with, I mean, it's basically like there is a ping pong game going on, and on one end there's a paddle holding neo-fascism, on the other end there's a paddle holding neoliberalism or neocon, basically. And when that volley just goes back and forth, one will just volley back to the other 100% of the time. We are the ping pong ball in this scenario.
Yeah, pretty much. I would say that there's only one team. It's just which oligarchs do they like to lavish? They both want to withhold what's desperately needed from us, and they want to withhold what's desperately needed from us and from so many. And that's what they use false economics to hide. They use false economics as a shield to hide.
One
they
of
just
many
want to
things they use.
One of many things, but obviously in my consciousness, that's the biggest thing. And they're just the two parties are, the only difference is which oligarchs they lavish. That's it. And the oligarchs for the Democrats are simply less racist. They're
Let me run this by you to kind of put a period on all this. So when the whole GameStop thing happened, that was people taking the rules that these Wall Street cats use all the time and making the rules work for them.
Yep.
That was what that was.
They got lucky. I mean, they were smart, but they got lucky that they could get in and take advantage of that until it was clamped down on.
Sure. Yeah. And they were strategic, but they basically made the rules that these Wall Street cats use every day to enrich themselves, to create a potential quadrillion in wealth. And they use that rule to their advantage.
Yeah.
And against the bigwigs.
Yeah.
MMT is basically using the rules to the advantage of the people instead of to the advantage of the billionaires who increased their wealth by how much, and we lost how much? I'm pretty sure the trillions matched up.
Yeah,
they increased their wealth by how many trillions?
Yeah.
We lost how many trillion?
Yep.
It's the same freaking number.
It's exactly the same.
And our government did it.
MMT shows above all else that money has nothing to do with anything. Money is just an expression of our politics. Politics is all there is. And if we don't get our politics in order as a people, then we will never have the power to stand up to the incredible amount of power that the current people in power have. And that's what they're so amazing at, is using all of these distractions and get gadgets and gizmos galore, to get into Disney movie quote, to distract us. And then, we see some people all that we like on our side that are fighting each other. And the dividing up is just so perfect. And it's the perfection in how they divide us up is, I'm in awe of it. It's like there are no victories. It seems like kind of hopeless. That's like there's no victories for people like us. There's no victories for our side at all. And it's like, a Deus Ex Machina, or however you pronounce that, is going to come. What's going to happen? Something has to happen. Something's going to happen, whether we like it or not. It's going to be controlled or it's going to be uncontrolled. At the moment, it's obviously going to be uncontrolled unless our path really changes.
Yeah. Well, I like when you say it's like we have no victories, because that's just something when you see, so much infighting and bickering, be it on Twitter or anywhere else. And this is nothing new. The left has literally done this for 100 years in this country. Like, it's nothing new. And then you kind of just take a step back and you realize, hey, y'all, we have like an 0-100 record right now. Like we've been losing for like 100 years, pretty much, give or take.
And we're the ones, but we're the ones with, but we're the ones that have all the right ideas and the good intentions and the good hearts. What? It's like, what? So why are we, Makes no sense. The bad guys are just completely winning, and we're pretending that voting is going to get us what we want. It's like I invested 5 years of my life to Bernie. I mean, deeply involved in the Bernie campaign for 5 years, and then Super Tuesday, I was like, I'm taking a break. I'm taking a break.
Yeah,
the neoliberal shindig, and then the day after, I was like, I'm taking a break. I'm going to use this opportunity to just dive more into academics and learning MMT and this stuff, and which has really taught me a lot about myself.
Well, then what is kind of like your big pillars for solutions then? Because, we can't vote our way out of this thing. You know it. I know it. What is kind of like the big pillar for you then? Is it
I think there's no way for it to be messy, with no way for it to not be messy, and not by choice, not to choose for it to be messy. I just don't see how. Like, I had a really interesting conversation with someone on one episode, actually the episode I just released of my podcast, and he was talking about Bernie. I was shocked that he brought up Bernie, and I was like, the money. This is actually interesting. So oligarchs, rich people, if they want to defeat the government, they can come in and say, or a powerful person, whatever, wants to come in and defeat the current government. All they can say is, your debts are with that government. You get me in as ruler and your debts are gone. That's like how major changes in politics has happened in history. And Bernie kind of did that. Medical debt, student debt, free college, free, things that should be free. Basic human rights should not have a cost to it, which is what Bernie was saying. So he said these things. He said, make me your ruler and you won't have these debts anymore because your debts are with these guys. You won't have debts with me. So why didn't it work? And why didn't it work if he was saying those things? And I think it's because he's afraid. I think it's because he's afraid. He's on the inside and he says the correct things. He fights the good fight. I do believe he has a good heart. I had no doubt about that. I think he's afraid. And I think what we need is basically a Bernie that is not afraid to die. I mean, that's kind of, who am I to say these things, to decide these things? I don't have experience, to say. I'm not like knowledgeable, I don't feel. But just my instinct is like,
your politician running for office is going to be at absolute best, a reformer. And what we need is a revolutionary. And a leader in that regard. We need like we don't have our Eugene Debs, we don't have our Emma Goldman, we don't have our Lucy Parsons, we don't have any of that, and that's what we need. And real revolution. I don't see it happening without a massive general strike. I'm a general strike advocate. I think it is inevitable. I think we have to figure out a way to make it happen. I also advocate for just massive mutual aid, massive protests, and just, literally building the type of world we want to see one community at a time. If you want to focus on electoralism, take over your neighborhood, take your city back.
Yep. Actually, you just reminded me of something. So the Depression happened. I'm actually doing something really cool. I'm actually helping a professor who discovered MMT that I interviewed last year. He discovered MMT after 30 years of being mainstream. And he's like, this is it. I need to teach people this. And I'm helping him create an online course to teach people related stuff to this. And right now I'm studying the Great Depression. So after the Great Depression happened, it was all based, economics basically caused the Great Depression, was a significant contributor to the Great Depression. And so John Maynard Keynes came in and he created a new economic theory, which is a very big pillar of MMT. Post-Keynesianism, basically. So he created a new economic theory, okay? So it became dominant. The New Deal, government has to take a bigger role. We have to give people jobs. The government has to take a role. And so then the OPEC oil crisis happened. And then the monetarists, the Chicago School, what's his name? I can't think of his name. The one of the most prominent economists who's the devil, basically. I can't think of his name. The monetarists. They came in, they planned a counter-revolution because after the Great Depression came and the New Deal, now all of a sudden it became a lot more equal, which means that the 0.1% had a lot less relative income. And they were pissed off about this. So they created a counter-revolution and they created their false ideas that the government's horrible, the government causes these problems. And then, I mean, obviously it's not true, but they said, we're going to wait for a crisis, but we're going to put these ideas out there. And as soon as this crisis comes out, then the confusion and the chaos of that crisis, people will have heard our ideas for decades. Then we're going to pounce. And in the confusion and in the crisis, in the chaos, we're going to convince these people that our is a solution and Keynes's solution is wrong. Keynes's solution is wrong, even though it's been working for 50 years, it's wrong. And they worked. They got Keynes's economists out, they got their economists in, and that was the beginning of essentially of a neoliberalism. And the reason I'm saying this is because maybe we can use chaos. Naomi Klein has a book about shock doctrine, about using chaos, the confusion of chaos to ram in huge change. Well, maybe we can take advantage of that because something huge is going to happen. Some major catastrophe is going to happen. So maybe in some way we can kind of prepare for that we start bringing out our ideas. So in preparation for when the inevitable thing, something is going to happen, that we can perhaps we can kind of do that same thing. I don't know. I'm kind of shooting at the hip, but that's how they took over. Well, so maybe there's some way that we can,
That's how like revolution of the mind happens.
Yeah. Took a little long to say. Sorry. But
No. I hear you. Well, Jeff, we are out of time for today. There's a lot of things I wanted to get to that we didn't get to, so I'll have to have you back soon. But in the meantime, well, first of all, let me do a couple quick super chats that I missed over the past day or so. Red Pill, you say free water and Medicare for all. That was from our episode yesterday. We were covering the pipeline protest. Sorry, I missed it. And thank you very much for the super chat contribution. You help keep this show on the air. Wenchet, I missed one of your smiley faces. I appreciate it very much. Thank you very much. And then Chris, you gave a shout out to Status Quo for their Nina Turner interview. Thank you for that as well. And shout out to Status Quo. They do great work. And Wenchet, thank you. So thank you, Red Pill. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Wenchet. Sorry, I missed those. And Jeff, do you have any pets?
An 11-year-old and a 14-year-old.
Ha! All right. Well, yeah.
No, I don't.
You don't have.
I mean, I guess
so we'll do a pet from the Twitter feed then. If my guest has pets, I do the guest, but if they don't, I go to the Twitter feed where I did an open call for people's pets. Let me go ahead and scroll down here. Let's see, Jenna, we did boogers, and I forgot to give it a like, so I know that I did it. Oh, we're down to Nay. What's up, Trendy Nay? Shout out triageoil.com. Great paint oil. I use it myself. Check them out. And Trendy, I know that Rogan's a dog, but he says, well, does Rogan say meow actually work in this case? No, Nay. Rogan gets to say wolf. They get to say what they're supposed to say. So I know Rogan is a dog because Nace told me that before. But Rogan says wolf, and Lucy says meow.
And here's an old picture of my favorite picture. It's like 4 years old of my kids.
Aw, look at that. That's adorable. What are their names?
Jacob's the big one. Andrew's the small one. But that
Jacob and Andrew.
That's a good 4 years ago or so. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll include them too. So Rogan says wolf, and Lucy says meow, and Nay says peace, and I say peace, and Jeff says peace, and Jacob and what was the other one's name again?
Andrew.
Jacob and Andrew. They say peace, and they say more daddy bucks, please. More how's the garden coming? We're doing good with the garden. More daddy bucks. All right, y'all. We will be back on Monday for an official Get Your News On with Ron stream. And in the meantime, you know the drill. General strike, mutual aid, love.
Thank
peace.
You, Ron. Thank you, everybody.
See you next time. Check Jeff out at activistmmt.org. Peace.